Last question, pertaining to LSU football, and obviously other questions will be asked, I'd imagine, throughout the course of the show, but I'm going to go on the offensive side. I don't want to say it's necessarily a huge question mark, but the offense is going to look a little different than it did last year. I think that they're going to have a lot of the same concepts, but I think it's going to be executed a little bit differently. Obviously Jaden Daniels was an unbelievable threat with his legs. He's a great passer of the football. He went number 2 overall for a reason. Nussmeier is plenty capable. I think he is going to be really good at the quarterback position. But what is the offense going to look like? Who's going to take the reins as a running back? Who's going to be the number 2 and 3 receivers? Who's going to take over that role?
Trey Bradford.
And yeah. Where'd he go?
That one catch for
first play of the game.
70 yards.
First play of the game.
Never to be seen again.
No, crazy. But what's the offense going to look like? Is there going to be more of a I know you're going to spread them out. You're going to be out the shotgun. You're going to have a lot of that type, RPOs type looks. But is it going to be more of a pro style where you have sometimes he's going to be under center more than he was last year, and there's going to be some play action mixed into it, right? Because he has the big arm. You have powerful running backs. You have the number 1 offensive line in the country. Is that going to be more of the game? Brian Kelly has shown that he's able to do that.
Loves the tight end.
In his past, loves his tight end. He has 3 really good tight ends. Right, one who's going to get 1,000 yards receiving. Actually, I went to 800.
850.
No, it was 800. It was 800. Okay, but what is that going to look like? Is it going to be? It's going to be a mixture, but probably a majority out of the shotgun. But I would assume that he's going to have maybe, more under center, right? More of what a pro style offense would look like. That's a question to me. What do y'all think?
I think.
Mason Taylor.
If not just Mason Taylor, I do think in the pass game, the tight end position will be utilized more this year, simply because you don't have the ability to run the quarterback runs or the escapability that Jaden was able to show you to turn into big plays and stuff that they obviously also schemed up for him to be design runs and stuff like that. So I think you're going to be trying to take underneath yards a lot more with those guys. I'm wondering to see how much are the running backs going to get used in the pass game this year, if they're going to be used more or not, and how different things are going to look. Like you said, I do think you're going to see a little bit, maybe some plays under center where he's turning his back and, using play action a little bit. I wonder, and I think it's something that's huge for him. You got guys like Kyron Lacy and Nuss who have both been in the same offense for the last 3 years, both of them, right? Or 2 years for sure.
2 years for sure.
With that being said, Kyron's, for the most part, I believe, has always really worked with the ones, while Nuss has always kind of run with the 2. So I don't know in the past how much continuity they have with working with each other as outside of one-on-ones and, throwing balls on air, like dry runs on air before this year. The continuity between that group, the quarterback group, and obviously, really just Nussmeier and the receivers, to me, how quickly can that come together? How quickly can they mesh at game speed? And get on kind of board there, and I think that's going to be huge for him. But I do think, obviously, it's going to look a little different this year. But I really, truly expect a high-end type of offense again.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it feels like you almost need it to be a little bit different because of your defensive situation where you want to play ball control a little bit, where you can take time off the clock, be able to control what you do offensively so you're not putting your defense out there. Like, even when you had Dave Aranda in 2019, that offense was not something that they were prepared for, and you saw the defense struggle to acclimate to the tempo and speed of the game.
Coach, I think that's any defense. It really doesn't matter how good you are on defense. Like, if you go sit on the sideline and 3 plays later you're up again, you're always on the field. Yeah, you're gonna you can give up more points. It doesn't really matter. So I wouldn't say they need it to be that way. Like, if you're scoring, it's obviously a good thing, and they're not gonna not score just so they don't put the defense on the field. But with that being said, just because of what you got here, I just don't think at this point right now, I don't expect it to be as explosive as it was last year and literally a big play waiting to happen any single down, which is what it turned into for the vast majority of last year. But I do think it's going to be a very efficient and a very good offense who has a chance to hit you over the top very often.
Well, I think it's important to distinguish the difference, right? Like, you don't think it's going to be as explosive. That's not Jared saying that he doesn't think it's going to be an elite offense. That's him saying, hey, I just don't see us scoring in 3 plays as consistently as we did last year because you don't have a guy who can take it 85 yards with his legs in any given play. I think the passing game is going to be explosive, and I think the running game is going to be explosive, but I think it's going to be explosive in a different type of way. It's going to be a very elite offense and a very productive offense, but it's not going to be, we're going to score in 4 plays every drive. You may have more 8 to 10 play drives, which I think is good because at the end of the day,
you get to dictate.
You dictate the pace of the game, and you are going to be able to wear down a defense. So when it comes time to at the end of the game, you can be able to
Well, you said
run it down their throat or just put the game away.
Well, you want to wear down a defense, right? How do you wear them down? By keeping them on the field.
That's what I'm saying.
So, I don't think they're going to be trying to – it's off the field, but, yeah, dude, the more a defense is on the field, the more vulnerable you are to give up points. I think it's pretty simple to understand.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how good you are.
No doubt. And I think that, not saying that they won't be able to have a big play offense. And, look, maybe it's gonna develop into that where, hey, look, Joe Burrow wasn't running all over the field with his legs when he was here, but it was explosive because the receivers all stepped up.
Dude, you don't have to go back as far as Joe, like we talked about last year with Jaden. To start the year, even though he started the year with a 300-yard game throwing, we all thought, oh, dude, it's not going to look the same. He's not going to push the ball down the field. It's going to be dink and dunk. That's just what he does. He's not really going to push it. Yeah, I think that all changed at the end of the year. They literally had explosive plays up and down the damn field all pretty much the majority of the year. So, yeah, it could easily turn into that. I'm not saying it's not going to be that, but without the threat of the real run like you have with the quarterback, you're going to manufacture more yards through the other ways, and I think that's what you'll see.
It was quite the luxury to have a quarterback that topped out at 22 miles an hour against
just
Florida.
Under,
pretty much.
Just under.
Yeah. Didn't have to run the 40. I
almost
think just
as
put
fast
the tape
as
on.
Tyreek last year.
That's insane.
Crazy.
And so I don't think Nuss is going to top out at that speed. He can.
Daniel Jones did run at 21 miles an hour too, though. Then he fell.
Sniper.
Then he fell before he scored. Big year for him.
Big year for yes. It is.
A lot on his shoulders.
But for the LSU.
Big Hard Knocks tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's the draft.
It'll just be a coup de grace. It'll be a fun one. You just get to see Malik get drafted.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we know the end.
When's the other one start?
And he's been lighting
soon,
it
right?
up. He's been lighting it up at camp.
I heard he's
all over.
He's exactly what they wanted him to be. Yep. He's exactly what they wanted him to be.
Made him a star.
Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, because you don't have a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, 21.8 miles an hour in pads against Florida in the heat, like at night, third quarter. I don't think Nuss will do that, but I do think he's mobile. But one player I do want to highlight defensively is I think you saw him a little bit flash last year, but Deshaun Womack's going to have a huge year also.
Yeah.
I think that the end play is going to be better. It's just more about the middle that they have to figure out.
I think I'm looking at the roster now. I'm not saying depth. I get it, right? You talk about depth, but I think the question about depth is just it's more the experience. I think if the guys stay healthy and they go out there and the guys perform, they have enough numbers, right? And it's about, hey, are they going to be able to make the adjustments early on in their career to be counted on in that number of okay, now we have a 2-deep defensive line, we're good.
Yeah, I think the conversation of depth for me always comes down to capability more so than just sheer numbers.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? They have a roster. They have a full roster. The roster's filled out. They got depth. Doesn't matter. Can those guys actually be? Are they capable? Can we count on you and go out there? For instance, my freshman year, Todd Monken wanted any receiver who touched the field to be able to know the playbook from the X, the Y, the W, and the Z. He wanted you to know all of that for you to touch the field. So Chris Mitchell and I pretty much knew the X and the Z. Didn't really know the Y and the W, which means what? We didn't really play much.
Right.
So my point is we're on the depth chart. We got numbers, but we're not able, quote unquote, to go out there and do what's being asked.
Insert Terrence Tolliver.
Exactly. No, stop. Jesus Christ. What's wrong with you?
So
my point is that to me is what depth means. Not do you actually have the physical bodies? Yeah, they have it, dude. They're LSU. They've filled out the roster. I promise you they have. Can we count on you? Are you capable? Can you run the playbook? Can you do what we need you to do? That to me is depth, because if I can put you out there and you can really go out and do it, that's depth to me.
Agreed. I mean, it doesn't matter if you can't be counted on, then you might as well just not be on the roster, right? To count it as far as hey, can I put you in and can I count on you to perform at a high level? Great, that's depth. Guys who may not be quite ready, yeah, you're on the roster and maybe you're ready in a year or two, but for this year, that doesn't count for
not for
towards
depth,
our depth.
Well, and as much we're getting to the point where, as I guess counterproductive it is for LSU to play USC week 1, I am ready to play USC
doubt.
week 1. Like, I know it's not the best idea,
Well,
but
look,
let's put
here's
our
the
nuts
deal.
on the table here.
Here's the deal. It's not like like Florida State, I think, was a little bit – I mean, they're pretty highly touted.
We didn't leave that game going, LSU's defense is a problem.
Right. No, but Florida State was – I think had more hype going into the year than USC does. Now, obviously, it's USC. I think USC – I don't even know if they're ranked on the top 20. Maybe they're 25th. I think that's the preseason ranking that I saw. So I'm confident in where we got going on. I think it's a great test. And I know people don't like it. And, yeah, look, if you lose it, it sucks. But if you win it, it looks
been a long
great.
time.
I
I
would love to have that game be game 2.
Yeah, me too.
Me
But
too.
Of course.
with it being said, I still think LSU's at the point right now where because of the game that always looms and what it's been for the last 15 to 17 years, what it's been in November, you need a marquee game early on, because if you don't have it, you lose that game, you don't really have anything to fall back on. Because the way it's been in this conference, and obviously this year changes because there's no more divisions, just the top 2 teams. Usually that's not going to be from the same conference just because of the way, from the same division, the way the schedule kind of rolls out. But in the past, it's always been you get to November, well, if you lose that game, you don't have a better record. You're not going to the SEC championship. How on earth could they put you in front of those 2 teams?
Right.
So you need that game in there. Now, do you need it to be the first game out the gate? Maybe not. But, I think LSU is at a point right now where they need a marquee opponent early in the season, because I think
You got to go prove it.
Where Alabama was able to get is Nick knew they were going to take care of business throughout the season, and all they had to do was put themselves in a spot where they were at 1 or none when it came to the LSU game, and they were in a good spot to do whatever they needed to do the rest of the year, where LSU wasn't in that spot. We had been losing that game a lot, which also put you on the wrong side of that conversation, if you will. So I do think they're still at a spot now where you need a marquee game early in the year. It's a good test. And you got to think of it, and from the inside the building standpoint, you got to think of it as, bro, they got to face us, not we got to face them.
Exactly.
They got to face us. So,
And I think part of it, and we've talked a lot about how good the offensive line is. Last year, look, the offensive line was good.
Great.
This year, they're better than they were last year, right? Especially going into the season. And so they're a veteran offensive line. They've been together for a while. They're extremely talented. So I think that you can see if things aren't running as smoothly as you would expect them to run, or hope that they would run the first game, because first game jitters, getting all kind of the cobwebs off in gameplay, you can lean on that offensive line and say, all right, boys, I need y'all to take this thing over, and we're going to try to simplify this thing, and it's going to be quick passes, or it's going to be, hey, we're going to just start pounding the rock behind you, and let's start getting into a rhythm. You have the ability to do that with how good the offensive line is. I'm not saying they're going to. I'm saying if you look up, you're like, oh, shit, we're not we're a little out of whack. All right, hey, calm down.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
So here's my thing. Here's how I think about it. Remember where New Orleans 2 years ago to start the season, Florida State, remember where Jaden Daniels and that offense was at the time, early, especially the first half of that game.
You don't really know what was going to happen.
Kayshawn was cooking the books.
No, just the first half of that game, you just got a lot of, man, they don't look in sync. Man, they don't look good. Man, they don't have no time. Man, he doesn't trust this. He won't stand in the pocket. All of that, right? The majority of that line is still playing for this team.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me, what I think about this year's offense is to me, is how together will you start, or how quickly can you get to what is the top end of that offense? Because I do think this will be a more productive offense when they're not at their best, compared to the last 2 years with Jaden behind there when they weren't at their best. I think it was just not a very good offense. I do think because of how strong they are up front, and because of the experience, and because of the ability that they have up front, they're always going to be productive. It's just, how high can this thing go? How quickly can it get to that height? And how long can you keep it there?
And for that offensive line, as good as they were the last 2 years with Jaden Daniels, that is a difficult way to play the game if you're on the offensive line when you're not exactly on schedule. Yeah, you don't know where he is. And so it's
I think that's always something with a running quarterback.
right.
That's
what I'm saying.
But my point is, at that point 2 years ago, is they never played together. They didn't know how he played. They didn't have any of that stuff. Those guys were still young at that time too. That was freshman Will Campbell. A year before, he was still playing in high school. that's no longer a thing, and those guys have so much experience at this level now that if I can always count on you to, hey, we got this run call, we block it up and we can fall forward for 4 for the most part, that puts me in a lot better spot moving forward than we can't run it, we got to drop back and pass it, we can't protect it,
we can't block it.
That's way different. So I think this offense is geared to be a lot more successful when it's not good, if you will, when they're early on and they're kind of, putting it together, than the last 2 years, if you will.
And we've got a couple Ask Mikie and Mitches in here. I know it's Monday, but
Let's go.
in this same vein of this conversation, Fonz Ferrelli, my guy, put in a question: where do you think that you see the LSU offense going, trending in terms of run versus pass? At 70-30 run pass or 60-40?
No, you really want to be as close to 50-50 as possible.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think that 60-40, 55-45 is really like the honey hole money spot right there. If you got to go 70-30 pass, you're probably playing behind in a lot of games and probably getting your ass whipped. So I would hope that they're not 70-30.
And you got a lot of guys in the backfield that are good.
John Emery.
Especially in this league. If we're having to go 70-30 and they know it and we know it and they're pinned back, you're getting your ass whipped. That's not where you want to be.
How do you finish games? You finish games by
victory formation,
throwing the ball around, and no, you finish the games by, hey, we're gonna run the ball and get first downs whenever we need first downs, and we're gonna make you stay on the field. And we're gonna milk some of the clock at the end of the games. I'm not saying you need to do that all game and be boring like Michigan was last year, but I'm saying you're gonna have to lean on that at some point in the game.
You also set tones that way, too. You start games like that. And it doesn't necessarily mean like, hey, I got to literally just pick it up, turn it around, stick it in someone's stomach. But you take run-type plays. You spread the field. You do those pop passes. You start physical play early. You set tones. You let them know you're in their face. You let them know you're coming at them all day. And you set tones, and you finish games with the run game.
Yep.
But teams that win do that.
And these guys get exhausted.
That's what they need. Yeah.
By running the football, you are allowing your guys your best position group on the field is your offensive lineman. You're allowing them to pound on their defensive line and wear them out. And now their linebackers and defensive linemen are going to have to tackle your big running backs time and time and time again. And they're going to get worn out.
Right through a motherfucker face.
And that's what I would expect to see. I would expect them to see it try to get to close to 50. I'm not saying it's going to be 50-50. But 60-40, 55-45, like Jared said, I think that is kind of what you would expect.
That's where you get into this LSU team could be a playoff team if that's the way that it lines up, because you do have Josh Williams came back. You have Caleb Jackson. If you get him into a game where he's the second running back coming in the third and fourth quarter, where you don't want that.
Well, then you have Caden Durham, right?
And I'm talking about from the other team's perspective. I do want that.
Right.
But you don't want to see a fresh Caleb Jackson coming in with 8 carries, then he comes in the third and fourth quarter like, this dude is a monster.
And you got Caden Durham, right, who's a stud.
And he can hit you over the head.
Right. And you got Trey Holly, who I know hasn't played and practiced much, but he's going to, at some point in the season, he's going to be back. They're going to be – he showed you last year he can take the ball a distance at any point.
Doesn't respect the troops at all.
You would imagine that they're going to have like some sort of plays in the playbook specifically for him. Now – I'm not saying he's going to be the featured guy, but
I would imagine if they don't, I would imagine too, if they don't, there's probably a chance that what's already on the field has been very efficient and very effective.
Right.
So like one way or the other, like I think that's what. Like I find it hard to find that this will be an offense where we're sitting there and we're like, man,
we don't have an identity.
We don't know what they don't look like they know what they're doing. They don't look like they're good enough. Like I find it hard to believe that that's what we'll find out of this offense.
And you'll find out very quickly, because this is not the USC defense that was run by
We don't know that yet.
Well, it's not Alex Grinch, which was Lincoln Riley's best friend and in the wedding and all of these things. He tried to bury him on the depth chart and be like, dude, you got a job, we'll be fine. And then it finally came to a head where, like, my ass is in the jackpot, so he gets the best probably.
What is that? Can we break down that phrase?
It's from the umpire.
I know who said it. I know what. Like where it came from, but
that's the first time I heard it. But
what does it mean?
I've never heard it until I did, but I did know what he was saying whenever he said that.
Yeah, but like what? Like my ass is in the jackpot.
My feet are on the fire.
I mean, I understand what it means, but like
I don't know how he got there.
Well, yeah, how did that happen?
That's umpires are an eclectic group.
Which John Boy does a great job breaking down the disagreements. Look, Pittsburgh was in the middle of one. Derek Shelton was yelling at the umpire because the pitch clock kept stopping. And he was yelling at him, and the umpire was saying, I don't have a magic buzzer to stop it. I'm not stopping it. And he was like, well, who the fuck is stopping it? And nobody can. And they just start yelling at him and tell him to shut the fuck up.
I'll get you ejected.
He's like, why is it stopping? It shouldn't be. It was fun. And John Boy does a great job. John Boy does
He's
a great
so
job
good
of
at
that.
that stuff,
He does a
man.
great job of that.
The Joe Kelly experience came back with a vengeance. The buzzer didn't work, his pitch comm didn't work, and he threw a hissy fit. And I was like, this guy is electric content every time he steps on the mound.
Oh, Joe's a show.
Joe's
a show.
Joe is one of those dudes that they talk about when they talk about, hey, like there's so many personalities in baseball. Oh, Joe's one of those guys. Joe's definitely one of those guys.
Why would you put that on me as I'm trying to communicate with you off
I
camera?
thought you were
Obviously
saying,
wasn't
like, put
doing
it back
this.
to me.
Nope. That's not at all what I was saying.
Check my phone. But I was saying about the defensive coordinator, because there's no Grinch, and now you got the best one in the country, allegedly, and D'Anton Lynn. Like, the USC defense will look better, too. Like, they're both kind of – LSU and USC are both kind of in the same spot where big prove-it game, and I think they'll both feel like they're a little bit better just because they have to be.
Well, hey, one thing I do love about the Blake Baker back here, about Corey Raymond being back here, I do think both of them understand that the ability to come in here and do a good job, no matter if you got top-end talent or whatever you have on that team, for them, their own careers it's literally going to skyrocket everything they do.
Yeah.
And it's going to set them on a path where they're always good when it comes to being coaches. So I do think they come in super highly motivated, and I think that's what LSU needs at this point.
Agreed. 100%. And I think that it's going to be you're going to see a lot of energy renewed. We have any more? You said you had a couple.
Oh, yeah, we got a couple. Let me get back to the chat here. Ask him. Phones again. Who's upset that I misread his question a little bit? I tweaked it a touch. Have y'all actually looked at the depth of the D-line? Even if the freshmen take 10 to 15% of the snaps, do you really think it's a weak point? And that's where I would.
Well, that's what we said earlier.
You'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Just because they have to play the depth.
Yeah, I don't think
there.
it's not even a question if it's whether
They're good. They're playing well.
But when I look at the roster right now, 100%, you're like, if I'm game planning and going against LSU right now, I'm like, all right, how well can we move the ball on the ground? Let's just see that right now. Because if I can start moving and I keep getting into these 2nd and 2s or 3rd and 3s and stuff like that, and now I can literally stick it in somebody's belly, pull it out, and make the pass because you have to commit. The D-line is 100% where you're trying to attack first when it comes to them, because you're like, this is the unknown. This is where they're young. This is where they're thin. This is what I'm going after. So, yeah, I think coming into the season, it's 100% valid to say the defensive line is their weakest point.
Yep.
That's the biggest. That's
is reality.
That's a question mark.
The biggest question mark and
Yeah.
the biggest task for that defensive coaching staff is how high can we get the caliber of play from this position right now?
Agreed.
And if you can score, what's the number?
What?
What's the number that you feel comfortable of LSU scoring? Like 30 points a game? Is that too much to ask?
30 is a pretty good spot for
I think
LSU
30
to
across literally the entire college football is
Yeah.
where if I can get my offense to do that a game, we should be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair spot pretty much anywhere, just because of the nature of how the game is played today.
Especially when you have Mason Taylor coming back after just missing the 1,000-yard mark by 650 yards.
Man, think about it. 800 is not that far away.
Not one game.
800 is not that far away, you know? Be more of a focal point in the offense.
Definitely.
You don't have a guy.
Did you see him playing paintball?
No.
LSU, they did a little team day, little fun with the boys.
Important.
It is camaraderie building. Nuss was leading the squad. He's a quarterback on and off the field. But Mason Taylor went out there shirtless and was running around like a madman. And I didn't know who he was, so I commented on it. I was like, put this guy on kick. And his mother was like, that's Mason Taylor. That's what's up.
Oh, she responded to you.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was like, well, he doesn't need to run down on kick. Never mind.
ready.
That's great.
we need 1,000 yards from him.
That's great. She responded to
1,000 yards.